After 6 years of being neglected by my wealthy husband, I filed for divorce. He tore up the agreement, sneering, "Do you think my house is a hotel, where you can come and go as you please? Thanks for the invitation, but I was at the mall and didn't have time to deal with the ice." I stared at the 8-figure sum that had just landed in my mobile banking app. I had my assistant print a new copy of the agreement and deliver it to Marcus. 6 years ago, it was raining that day. Soaked to the bone, I rushed into the top floor of Vance, the ICU bill crumpled in my bag. When Henry pushed the check across the dark wood desk, Marcus was reviewing documents on the other side. "Grace," he said, "just consider this your grandpa's last favor." The old man's hand, speckled with age spots, patted the back of mine. I traced the clause on the agreement: marital relationship automatically dissolved after 6 years. I didn't dare look at Marcus's flamboyant signature beneath the clause, the strokes so sharp they seemed to cut through the paper. Marcus's gaze, however, never left the document. This marriage, transactional from the start, was destined to be fraught with cracks. And so, a marriage without a wedding or blessings quietly came to be. I moved into Vance, becoming Marcus's wife in name and Ethan's mother. Young regarded me with a wary yet curious gaze. Mom. Yes, Grandpa's true purpose in having me marry into the Vance family was to care for his grandson, Ethan. Ethan was a complication Marcus had created in his youth, and the Vance family would not allow their own bloodline to remain unknown to the public. To maintain the family's image, Grandpa had raised him alone at the old estate, never revealing the child's existence to outsiders. After a few quiet years, Marcus met Clara, the one that got away. While they were deeply in love, 3-year-old Ethan's existence was suddenly revealed. The sudden turn of events shattered their sweet routine. The one that got away couldn't accept that Marcus had hidden such a grown child from her. After multiple heated arguments, the one that got away eventually chose to leave the country, ending their relationship completely. Ethan, too, subsequently entered the view of the elite and wealthy. Grandpa knew he was old and couldn't care for the child long term, nor did he trust others. Coincidentally, I came seeking help. Compared to other strangers, Grandpa had established a certain level of trust with me through years of sponsoring me. He offered to pay all of my mother's medical expenses as an inducement, asking me to care for Ethan as his mother, with a $10 million compensation after 6 years. On our first night of marriage, I was met with cold indifference. Marcus slammed the guest room door so hard it shook the house. Later, I learned that was the day the one that got away left the country. I curled up in the unfamiliar master bedroom, listening to the piano music from downstairs, the same piece the one that got away often played for him. At breakfast the next morning, he tossed the divorce papers in front of me. 6 years from now, I'll have my lawyer contact you. The ceramic spoon clinked against the bowl. I watched his retreating figure in his suit. I suddenly recalled the faint scent of cedar on the agreement the day I signed it. Before I could think further, the housekeeper brought a crying Ethan to me. "Madam, Ethan is fussing and wants you to hold him." I naturally extended my arms, expertly cradling the child and smoothing his ruffled hair. The little one's sobs gradually subsided. Married life moved like precisely synchronized gears. Every morning at 7 sharp, I would appear in Ethan's children's room, fixing his crooked tie. At 7:30, Marcus would descend the spiral staircase with a black coffee, his gaze always fixed on his phone screen. At 8, I'd drop Ethan off at Elite. The driver always unlatched the car seat at the 3rd traffic light. I repeated T.'s seemingly peaceful life for over 2,000 days and nights, until the day I ran into Clara at the mall. In that moment, I understood that his tenderness and patience weren't absent, he simply had never shown them to me. She was wearing a matching hoodie that coordinated with the teddy bear hoodie I bought for Ethan last birthday. She squatted in the toy section, letting Ethan stuff stuffed animals into her arms. Marcus, dressed in a matching hoodie, stood beside them, looking like a perfectly complete family. Clara's shoelace even came undone, and Marcus, uncharacteristically, bent down to tie it for her. Unbelievable, when had Marcus, the esteemed CEO of Vance, ever tied someone else's shoelace? Ethan's clear laughter pierced my heart like a needle. I instinctively turned, bumping into a passerby. I'm so sorry. The passerby waved dismissively and walked away. The commotion drew the attention of Ethan and the other two. I didn't dare look at them again, even Ethan's shouts of "Mom" seemed to dissipate. I was afraid to turn around and see the burning anger in their eyes. After all, watching their harmonious display, I felt my 6 years of effort had been nothing but a joke. Back home, looking at the familiar yet strange room, I finally made up my mind to end this marriage that had long been in name only. Getting the compensation and leaving seemed like a good idea. 3. The torrential rain was still lashing against the floor-to-ceiling windows. I took off my wedding ring and tossed it into my bag. My phone suddenly vibrated. It was a message from Vance's legal counsel. Mr. Vance requests that you return home immediately. The terms of the divorce papers need to be renegotiated. I knew it, divorcing Marcus wouldn't be simple. Just as my fingers touched the doorknob, I suddenly remembered a snowy night. I had a fever, my consciousness hazy. In a daze, someone seemed to tuck in my blanket, their cedar-scented warmth fleeting. Slammed the door. What was I thinking? That jerk. As the elevator descended, I opened a news notification. Marcus, CEO of Vance, appeared at a charity gala, walking the red carpet hand in hand with pianist Clara. In the accompanying photo, he was seen gently tucking a wind-blown strand of hair behind the woman's ear. A handsome man and a beautiful woman, they looked truly intimate. If only this man wasn't my husband. The moment the front door swung open, a gust of warm air greeted me. I stepped into the foyer, my umbrella still dripping, rain tracing several trails down its ribs. I casually placed the umbrella in the stand and changed my shoes. Suddenly, a clear voice came from inside the house, growing closer. Mom. It was Ethan. His lips unconsciously curved upwards as he turned towards the source of the sound and responded. You're home so late again today. If Susan hadn't come, we would have starved. Ethan rushed over, surprisingly, to scold me. I looked at the child I had raised for 6 years. He was gradually growing into someone I no longer recognized. Ethan didn't care what he had just said. He proudly shoved the drawing in his hand right in front of me. Look, Dad took Clara and me to the amusement park. I took the paper, my fingertips tracing the wobbly lines. In the drawing, curly-haired Clara held Ethan's hand, and baseball-capped Marcus stood beside them. All three stood in front of a carousel, grinning. That's a lovely drawing, I murmured, my throat tightening as I traced Ethan's figure on the paper. It looks like you had a lot of fun. Ethan blinked his big, sparkling eyes. Of course. He suddenly leaned in, lowering his voice conspiratorially. Dad also said he'd take me again in the future. Then he pouted at me. If you want to go, I can ask Dad to take you too. For footsteps echoed from upstairs. I looked up, meeting Marcus's deep gaze. He leaned against the stair railing, the hem of his gray sweater casually hanging. He seemed happy about my return at that moment. Oh, change first. His gaze swept over the damp marks on my shoulder. Ethan looked up, continuing to talk to me. Then come to my room later, I haven't finished telling you about it. Marcus's gaze flickered between his son and me. He spoke directly to Ethan. Your mother and I have something to discuss. Go back and do your homework. His stern tone startled Ethan. Ethan's expression froze. He turned and went upstairs to his room immediately, leaving my hand, which had reached out to pat his head, to fall. The next second, Marcus also turned towards his study. As the door closed, I caught his hesitant glance. What was hidden in that look? Triumph, or something else? Steaming mist from the shower clouded the mirror. Warm water flowed over my shoulders and neck. The face in the mirror was flushed from the steam, and water droplets trickled from my hair onto my collarbone. Ethan's eager face, presenting the drawing, reappeared in my mind. Clara got along so well with Ethan so quickly, even wearing matching outfits. I unconsciously leaned against the wall, the cool touch bringing me back to reality. I recalled Clara's gentle smile as she wiped Ethan's sweat. And the child's joyful tone when he looked up and called Aunt, it was like a fine needle repeatedly pricking my heart. It turned out that, without me noticing, this outsider had already quietly integrated into our lives. Perhaps the child was far more perceptive than I imagined, and a new, gentler, more patient mother could win his heart more easily. The water still rushed, and in the rising steam, my reflection in the mirror gradually blurred into a phantom. It transformed into an image of Ethan opening his arms to me, his clear childish voice echoing continuously in the bathroom. Mom, ever since Aunt came, Dad spends more time with me. I like Aunt. I haphazardly wiped my face and turned off the shower. As I wrapped the bathrobe tighter, the lingering scent of lavender mixed with the stuffy bathroom air, stifling me. 5. Pushing open the bathroom door, coolness, along with the sound of the TV left on in the living room, flowed in. As I passed Ethan's slightly ajar door, I vaguely caught sight of him at his desk, his pen tip moving. My steps faltered, but ultimately, I turned and headed towards the study. The moment the doorknob turned, moonlight streamed in through the blinds. The metal chair legs scraped against the floor, emitting a harsh sound as I sank heavily into the leather seat. My fingertips traced the black text of the clauses: equity division, child custody. All right, what changes do you need for this agreement? I loosened the collar of my damp bathrobe, my gaze directly meeting the eyes of the person opposite me. I've already made concessions on the asset division. By any measure, this won't harm your Vance family's interests. Marcus seemed rather complacent, not believing I genuinely wanted a divorce. What, seeing Clara show up, you start throwing a tantrum and even demand a divorce? I stared at him directly, not saying a word. You really want a divorce? First, you and the old man teamed up to get married, and now you want to divorce whenever you please? Are you making a fool out of me? Understanding my meaning, Marcus slapped the agreement onto the custom-made desk. The glass surface behind him reflected my calm expression, as if I were looking at some unreasonable client. Mr. Vance, Article 3 of the prenuptial agreement is very clear. I pointed to his signature beneath the clause. Furthermore, Ethan isn't resistant to Miss Clara now. In the drawing he did last week, the person standing next to his father wasn't me anymore. Marcus suddenly gripped my wrist, the scent of tobacco wafting towards me. Grace, do you really think you can just walk away unscathed? I didn't reply. Leaning forward, I took out the stack of yellow documents from my handbag. The edges of the manila envelope were frayed, marks left from years of keeping it close to me. When the agreement lay flat before him, Marcus's hand, still gripping mine, suddenly froze. The night before the wedding, I said, gently tapping Grandpa's strong signature on the agreement. Grandpa slipped this signed agreement into my hand. He said that if we didn't divorce by a certain time, this share transfer document would become effective. My fingernail unconsciously grazed the paper, making a faint rustling sound. I didn't understand it then, but now I do. The old man had long foreseen this day. Marcus's gaze was fixed intently on the document in my hand. No wonder you're so calm. So the old man gave you a backup plan. I let out a sarcastic laugh. Marcus, this is the exit strategy he left for me, and it's the Vance family's dignity. I suddenly felt the air conditioning in the study was too bone-chilling. Don't make us tear each other apart. After the old man passed away, the old guard on the board have all been waiting for me to make a mistake. His fingertips tapped the desk, his gaze sweeping over my face. This marriage was always a bargaining chip. Now that the old man isn't here to keep things in line. His voice abruptly stopped. He suddenly leaned forward, propping himself on the edge of the desk. The divorce papers need to be changed. You'll leave with nothing. Thunder roared outside the window, illuminating the madness in his eyes with stark clarity. My hand, holding the coffee cup, paused. The cool porcelain against my palm felt surprisingly calm. That gloomy old estate of the Vance family, with its intricate web of power, was inherently a swamp. Moreover, I had the compensation Grandpa gave me. That money was enough. All right, I said, pushing the cup and saucer away. The metal spoon clinked crisply. But you have to sign the redrafted divorce papers now. Check it over, so you don't wake up tomorrow and use family interests as an excuse again. Marcus looked at the section that read voluntarily waives all property, and suddenly let out a soft laugh. Grace, you're more ruthless than I imagined. Once confirmed, both parties signed without hesitation. The feeling's mutual, I said, quickly gathering the documents. Tomorrow at 9, at City Hall. Hearing the faint clinking of porcelain from the display cabinet behind him, something came to mind, and I turned to look at Marcus. Let me give you a piece of advice. Try to be a decent person from now on. Marcus opened his mouth, but ultimately said nothing. The sound of rain tapping against the glass grew clearer, like countless fine needles pricking at this crumbling home. The heavy door closed behind me. I quickly walked away along the marble tiles of the corridor outside the study. It wasn't until I rounded the corner, and the warm yellow light from the study's slightly ajar door was no longer visible, that I finally breathed a sigh of relief. This transaction, bought with 6 years of my youth, was finally coming to an end. The 7 a.m. sunlight slanted into the living room as I hastily swallowed the last bite of my sandwich. Then, like a guardian deity, I sat vigil on the living room sofa, absolutely determined to prevent any mishaps this time. All my documents were neatly stacked in the manila envelope on my lap, the marriage certificate peeking out from the opening. Finally, steady footsteps echoed from the staircase landing. Marcus, in a sharp suit, descended the steps. Catching sight of my tense expression, his brows immediately furrowed into a knot, and he tugged at his collar. It was something we had already agreed upon, yet my heart felt like it was stuffed with cotton. He deliberately ignored my piercing gaze, walking directly to the dining table. "Mrs. Davis, a black coffee, please. Are your documents ready?" My abrupt question interrupted the clinking of cutlery. Marcus slammed his cutlery down, the dining chair scraping loudly against the floor. He abruptly looked up, a sneer escaping through clenched teeth. "So eager? Then." He bounded upstairs, returning in a whirlwind, and slapped the document bag down beside me with a sharp thud. Marcus was clearly frustrated in every way. Seeing the woman in front of him inspecting the documents, he could only take his anger out on someone else. "Mrs. Davis." He yanked his tie loose, adjusting his collar, a vein throbbing in his temple. "Why isn't my coffee ready yet?" Mrs. Davis scurried into the living room, carrying a porcelain cup. "Mr. Vance, be careful, it's hot." Before she finished speaking, Marcus had already snatched the cup and gulped down a mouthful. A violent coughing fit erupted. The scalding coffee dripped from his chin onto his shirt collar, spreading a dark stain. He cursed his streak of bad luck, slamming the cup onto the coaster. The sharp clink of porcelain startling me. "Done checking? If there's no problem, let's go." "Stop dawdling." I looked at the agitated Marcus, not understanding what kind of fit he was throwing so early in the morning. All that clattering, but my resolve to divorce left me no mind to probe further. I simply replied, "No problem. Let's go." The glass doors of City Hall reflected the blinding sunlight, and the red glow of the cue screen cast shadows on Marcus's profile. Everything proceeded systematically, the staff mechanically repeating the procedures. This is the final confirmation of the cooling-off period. If you still wish to divorce after this period, bring the relevant documents to apply for the divorce certificate. Listening to this, my heart was still, but Marcus, beside me, seemed restless. 7 Leaving City Hall, the sun was still shining brightly. I confidently hailed a car. Just then, Marcus suddenly leaned closer, the scent of cedar cologne mixed with bitter coffee wafting towards me, a mocking smile on his face. "If you really divorce, you won't enjoy the benefits the Vance family brings anymore. No drivers, housekeepers, private doctors. Can you get used to that?" His tone was full of provocation, as if he wanted a different reaction from me. I watched the approaching taxi, a faint smile gracing my lips, my voice calm and firm. "What's there to get used to? I lived like that for 20 years before, it's not like I can't go back after just 6. With that, I got into the car without hesitation. The door closed with a thud, completely shutting off everything behind me. Through the car window, I saw Marcus still standing on the City Hall steps, his eyes filled with exasperation. Then, he sharply turned, strode towards his car, and quickly disappeared down the street. The divorce process had begun its first step. Next, I needed to start looking for a job. Resumes I had previously submitted started getting responses, but when the topic of my several-year gap in employment came up, companies became vague and simply rejected me. Professor's call came suddenly. From the receiver, I heard his familiar, robust voice. "Grace, Daniel's studio needs people. I know your foundation, why don't you give it a try?" I walked to the balcony, holding my phone. "Professor, I'm afraid." Afraid that all the theory and practice had long been washed away by daily life. "Afraid of what?" "Get back that drive you had when you were studying," Professor chuckled on the other end. "Daniel promised me he's holding a spot for you. Go check it out, just as a favor to me." On the day of the interview, I specially wore my most formal shirt, only to have mud splashed on my pant leg by a delivery scooter downstairs from the studio. As I crouched by the flower bed wiping the stain, the glass door clicked open. A man in a white shirt bent down and offered a packet of wet wipes. "Your Grace, right? I'm Daniel, the person in charge." The moment I looked up, the name on his ID badge overlapped with the memory of the young man who always twirled a pen in Professor's office. I quickly stood up. "Hello, Daniel, Professor mentioned you to me." He stepped aside, letting me in. "Project Award C. Certificates hung on the hallway wall. Don't be nervous, just call me Daniel. We'll just have a simple chat." The air conditioning in the meeting room was a bit cool, but my palm, clutching my resume, was sweating. He pushed a glass of warm water towards me. The project team happens to need a data analyst. Can you come in for a trial tomorrow? I looked up in surprise. Don't you need to test my abilities? Daniel paused when he flipped to the education page, then looked up, his gaze behind his glasses very gentle. You were the top student in the department back then, and I trust you. When I left the studio, the sun was bright. My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was a message from Professor. How did it go? Daniel didn't give you a hard time, did he? I smiled at the screen, my fingertips typing, no, thank you, Professor. Work proceeded smoothly. I hadn't completely forgotten what I learned in school. I just needed to familiarize myself with the procedures to get started. Time to go. Daniel came to my office door and knocked, reminding me. Seeing that there was still a bit more to organize with the documents, I still have a little bit left to organize, but it's just a small amount. I'll be done in a minute. You go ahead, Daniel. Daniel declined. It's your first day, and I wanted to treat you to dinner. Is my junior colleague not giving me a chance? I quickly waved my hand. No, Daniel, I didn't mean that. My fingers tightened slightly around the edge of the document. When I looked up, I met his smiling eyes and realized he was joking. Daniel had already efficiently gathered the scattered reports for me, his fingers tapping a few times on the keyboard to save the document. The moment the screen went dark, his face was reflected on it. See? All done. He picked up his jacket from the back of the chair and draped it over his arm. There's a lobster nearby. You always said you wanted lobster when we were in school. Want to try it? I did recall something like that. Back then, Daniel's mom would drive several hours to school every week, bringing some homemade food for Daniel. What he couldn't finish, Daniel would share with other students of the same professor. A few times, it was shrimp his mother had made. Thinking of this, I actually felt like having some. Would it be too much trouble for you, Daniel? No trouble at all. He was the first to open the office door, and the post-rain damp air from the hallway flowed in. It's a good opportunity for us to get to know each other better. I followed him into the elevator, where our two reflections appeared in the mirrored surface. He was thinner than he was in school, and his suit was immaculately pressed. But the eyes behind his gold-rimmed glasses were still the same as they were back then, with a hint of mischievous amusement. It was as if nothing had changed since our school days. In the slight sensation of weightlessness as the elevator descended, I suddenly felt that my life, which had been put on hold for 6 years, truly seemed to click back into motion. Steam condensed into mist on the glass window. Daniel used the serving tongs to place a few shrimp in the bowl in front of me. Try some quickly, the food here is quite good. He didn't pick up his own chopsticks, instead watching me begin to peel shrimp before suddenly speaking. Actually, when the project team was hiring this time, I was very happy when Professor called to recommend you. I looked up. Have you been at this studio all this time, Daniel? Yes, I worked with Professor for 2 years after graduating, and then when he retired, I came here. He stirred the air in his bowl. Speaking of which, if you hadn't left back then, maybe now. He trailed off mid-sentence, then smiled instead. Let's not talk about that. Let's discuss the project. I found the user persona proposal you mentioned today particularly interesting. Outside, it gradually grew dark, and the streetlights cast a hazy glow. Listen. To him talk about work, occasionally interjecting a thought or two of my own, the forgotten professional terms, the past I once knew by heart, resurfaced like pearls rising from the bottom of the sea. When it was time to pay, I quickly reached to scan, but Daniel placed a hand on my wrist. His fingertips were slightly cool, but his grip was firm. I said it's my treat. You can treat me next time. He shook his phone. I've already paid. As we stepped out of the restaurant, the evening breeze was pleasant. He pointed to a car parked on the street. Can I give you a ride? No need, Daniel. My place isn't far from here, just a 10-minute walk. He nodded and didn't insist, just stood there watching me walk away. A few steps later, I looked back and saw him still standing under the streetlight. When he saw me looking, he raised a hand and waved. I waved back, and as I turned into the alley, my phone vibrated in my pocket. It was a message from Daniel, come early tomorrow. I'll bring you soy milk from the place downstairs. My fingertips typed OK on the screen. Looking up, I saw the moon emerge from the clouds, its clear light quietly falling on my path forward. The project was nearing its end, so I found a free day and went to see Ethan. It was the first time I had been away from Ethan for so long. Ethan? I called out, placing the gift on the coffee table. The 10-year-old sat on the sofa, clutching his tablet, his school uniform collar loosely open. When he looked up, those eyes, so much like Marcus's, held no trace of anticipation, but instead a layer of coldness. Why are you back? The smile on my face faltered. It's vacation, so I came to see you. See me? He scoffed, his fingers rapidly swiping across the screen. Dad told me you couldn't hack it out there, and sooner or later you'd have to come back to win me over. What, can't bear to divorce so soon? Ethan. I clutched the handle of my bag, my knuckles white. Your dad really taught you that? Did I say something wrong? He abruptly stood up, the tablet clattering onto the carpet. For the past 6 years, Dad always disliked me because of you, never taking me to amusement parks. It's only with Aunt around that Dad treats me so well. The boy's voice suddenly rose. Do you know what the kids at school say about me behind my back? They say I'm unwanted by my parents. That's not true, Ethan. My throat felt constricted. I tried to touch his shoulder, but he sharply shook me off. I love you. I don't want to hear it. He took a step back, his voice trembling. If you were so good, why couldn't you make Dad play with me or come to parent-teacher conferences for me? You're just a nanny Grandpa hired for me. With that, he grabbed his tablet and ran back to his room, his heavy footsteps echoing in the hallway. The bright sunshine outside streamed onto the floor, yet it couldn't warm the icy chill in my heart. My chest felt as if something was clenching it, aching. I crouched in the empty bedroom. My fingertips unconsciously traced the spaceship design on the Lego box. How could I forget? He used to always snuggle into my arms, calling Mommy in a sweet, childish voice. He would run to me crying when he scraped his knee, and he'd be the first to show me his perfect test scores. When did things start to change? 6 years. I thought if I just took good care of Ethan, it would compensate for the fact that Marcus didn't like him. But I never imagined that the sharp tongues of outsiders, the grievances he silently endured, would slowly grow thorns in his heart. And once during a conversation, Ethan vaguely mentioned, Aunt bought me new sneakers. I was busy taking his temperature at the time and just casually said, tell her thank you from Mom. Now, looking back, those neglected details formed a dense web. What would Clara and Marcus whisper in Ethan's ear? Would they say that because Marcus didn't like me, it made his dad dislike him too? Otherwise, how would such a young child say words like win over or nanny? My stomach felt heavy. I stood up, leaning against the wall. A faint scent of perfume still lingered in the living room. No one in the family used that perfume, it must have been Clara's. So, in the past year, someone had quietly, without a fuss, painted a completely distorted picture of me in Ethan's heart. That little one who used to hug my neck and act spoiled, was ultimately, out of my sight, fed by other voices until he grew up. 11 City Hall wasn't particularly crowded on a Friday. Since it was a weekday, Daniel took a detour to pick me up. When the black sedan smoothly stopped at the bottom of the steps, I took a deep breath, my hand tightening slightly on the door handle. Daniel didn't ask much, he just softly said, I'll wait for you outside, when my fingers, clutching the document bag, turned white. The procedures went surprisingly smoothly. The moment the marriage certificate was swapped for the divorce decree, 3 years of accumulated gloom finally dissipated. Pushing open the door, I saw Daniel getting out of the driver's seat and walking around to the passenger side to open my door. It's over? His voice was soft, with a hint of subtle warmth. I was about to nod when a furious roar suddenly exploded behind me. Grace, are you that desperate to get rid of me? It was Marcus. I didn't know when he'd followed me, but he was standing right behind me, completely devoid of his usual composed demeanor. Seeing opening the car door for me, he seemed to ignite like a firecracker, his voice suddenly rising. No wonder you were so eager to divorce. You hooked up with someone new this fast? Abusive words hailed down on me. People around us stopped to stare, their pointing fingers and gazes making me uncomfortable. Seeing the onlookers' attention, Marcus reined himself in slightly, withdrawing the curses he was about to unleash. Daniel frowned, stepping half a pace forward to shield me. Excuse me, G. Race is currently my business partner. He seemed about to argue further. I looked at Marcus's face, distorted by rage, feeling an unusual calm, almost a desire to laugh. Losing his composure so publicly wasn't like him, given his preference for passive aggression. I mumbled softly to myself, my voice so low only I could hear it. Daniel, let's go. I didn't spare him another glance, bent down, got into the passenger seat, and closed the car door, shutting out the commotion behind me. The car smoothly pulled away from City Hall. In the rearview mirror, his agitated figure grew smaller and smaller, finally shrinking into a blurred black and completely disappearing into the traffic. Are you all right? Daniel asked. I shook my head, watching the street scenes flash by outside the window. Suddenly, the sunlight seemed brighter. I'm fine, I said softly. Finally, some peace. Daniel handed me a new project proposal. When you suddenly disappeared back then, Professor talked about it for ages. He said you were the most gifted student he ever taught. He trailed off, his gaze fixed on the faint ring mark on my ring finger. Was it because of family reasons? Countless images from the past 6 years, of me alone, giving Ethan medicine, flashed through my mind. Yes, but now I'm free. Then let's celebrate tonight, to congratulate Grace on officially unlocking a new chapter in her life. I lowered my head to organize the documents, my hair falling to conceal my reddened eyes. 12. My phone vibrated twice on the desk. I tapped on WhatsApp, the little red dot for a new friend request was particularly glaring. It was Clara. The verification message read, "Excuse me, there's something I wanted to ask you." Her tone was quite innocent, it seemed. My finger hovered over the accept button for a few seconds before I finally tapped to confirm. The moment the request was accepted, the chat window popped open. She didn't rush to speak, instead sending a selfie first. The angle was carefully chosen to show her profile, and the large diamond stud earring on her earlobe sparkled dazzlingly in the light. The caption read, "Just bought these, are they a bit too flashy?" I stared at the line for 2 seconds, then my fingers flew across the screen. "Excuse me, Marcus and I are already divorced. If you have anything to ask, you can just ask him directly. There's no need to put on an act in front of me." The other party's typing indicator flashed on and off, but no words appeared for a long time. She probably hadn't expected me to be so blunt, not even bothering with polite preliminaries. A full minute passed before she replied, the pretense in her tone completely gone, replaced by a hint of exasperation at being seen through. "Grace, don't you dare be so ungrateful. Do you really think Marcus had any feelings for you? He was sick of you. Look who sent these earrings. He said I'm the one he loves most." I looked at the dense text on the screen and suddenly found it a bit amusing. So, she went through all that trouble to add me just to say this? Just as I was about to close the chat, another message from her came through. "Why do you think he agreed to the divorce so quickly? It's all because of me. He said being with you was torture. Now, being with me, that's what living is like." The smugness in her words almost overflowed the screen, like a child who'd snatched someone else's toy and was afraid no one knew about it. I raised an eyebrow and replied with "Oh." She completely exploded on the other end, her typing indicator furiously flashing, probably trying to formulate even nastier words. But I didn't wait. I simply tapped delete, and the world instantly became quiet. The moonlight from outside streamed in, landing on the empty coffee table. I picked up the warm water beside me and took a sip, tasting a faint sweetness on my tongue. It was the honey Daniel had given me that afternoon, saying it would help me calm down at night. As F.O. Are Clara's words? Just a clown's self-indulgent performance. A truly liberated person has no time to care about someone else's charade. 13. For the next 3 months, I fully dedicated myself to the studio's operations, constantly rotating between the conference room and my office. Daniel often brought me warm milk tea when I worked late, and during late-night revisions, he'd intuitively fill in the details I'd missed. Just when I thought life would continue steadily like that, the studio door burst open with a crash. Clara stormed in, radiating fury, her high heels clicking harshly on the floor. She threw her bag onto the nearby coffee table and stared at me, arms crossed. "Grace, did you deliberately set a trap for me with Marcus?" I frowned, looking up. "What are you talking about?" "What do I mean?" she scoffed, taking 2 steps closer. "Marcus has been dragging his feet about the wedding lately, and even Ethan has been acting out because of it. What else could it be but you stirring things up behind the scenes?" My hand tightened around the mouse. A surge of anger flared within me. "Clara, get this straight, Marcus and I have been divorced for ages. We have absolutely no ties, now or ever. As for Ethan, I've barely seen him a few times in total, so how could I possibly be manipulating him?" "No ties?" She scoffed as if I'd told the funniest joke. If you two have no ties, why would he keep the lamp you gave him? And why would he still call your name? My pent-up emotions suddenly snapped. I sprang to my feet, my voice rising several octaves. You're overthinking it. Not everyone clings to old flames. Marcus has been on my blacklist for a long time. Sunlight slanted through the blinds, casting dappled shadows across my face. I've had enough of those miserable days, the emotional abuse and unpredictable moods. I wouldn't go back for a second. No sooner had I spoken than a strange sound came from Clara. A flicker of triumph crossed Clara's lips, which she quickly replaced with a look of distress. She brought her phone to her ear and hurried away. Marcus, you heard that, didn't you? I told you she was. Only then did it click, Clara had planned this. Was I just a pawn in their game? That evening, Marcus's phone kept ringing. Let's meet and talk. His voice came through the receiver, heavy and insistent. Don't make me use other methods. I rolled my eyes. There's nothing to discuss. Ethan wants to see you. He's waiting for you downstairs at the coffee shop and is about to cry. I took a deep breath. Fine, I said. I'll be there soon. Meeting him alone was too risky. My mind raced. I grabbed my phone and called Daniel. Daniel, are you free right now? Could you come with me to meet someone? 14. I'd barely settled into a window seat at the coffee shop when Marcus walked in with Ethan. The boy's eyes lit up when he saw me, but then he shyly retreated behind his dad. Daniel arrived and casually took the seat next to me. Marcus's gaze instantly turned icy, sweeping over the distance between Daniel and me. Grace, what's the meaning of bringing an outsider to a family meeting? Daniel didn't respond directly, only quietly asking, are you all right? I shook my head, but before I could speak, Marcus impatiently nudged Ethan's shoulder, his tone commanding, go on, tell your mom everything you told me last night. Ethan hesitated, then shuffled step by step toward me. Suddenly, he reached out and tightly clutched my wrist, his voice thick with tears, Mommy, I miss you. His palm was warm, with the unique warmth of a child, and my heart clenched painfully. Ethan buried his face in my arm, muttering, you didn't come to my parent-teacher conference this time. Mommy, please come back. Ethan promises to be good from now on. Marcus sat opposite us, his gaze fixed on our clasped hands, his expression so complex it was unreadable. Daniel cleared his throat softly, breaking the silence, but said nothing more, simply subtly shifting his chair closer to me. I subtly withdrew my hand. The light in his eyes instantly dimmed, and he pursed his lips, shrinking back, clearly reluctant, having been pushed forward by the adults. I didn't look at the boy, my gaze fixed squarely on Marcus. So, what now? Regrets? Did you forget how you threw a fit in front of Grandpa and me, insisting you wouldn't marry anyone but Clara? My words were like a needle, piercing exactly where he was most sensitive. I knew him too well. Marcus could never stand to lose face, especially in front of me. Sure enough, the hand clutching his coffee cup tightened abruptly. With a sharp thud, he slammed the cup onto the table, splashing brown liquid that stained the white tablecloth with an ugly mark. Grace, don't push your luck, he snarled, grabbing Ethan by the back of his collar. Let's go. The boy stumbled but dared not utter a sound. I watched their retreating figures disappear through the doorway, my heart unmoved. It was for the best. Better to tear off the pretense once and for all and save myself endless future entanglements. Less than half a month later, Marcus and Clara's wedding announcement flooded my social media feed. The photo showed them standing outside City Hall, Clara in a white dress, smiling sweetly. The caption was sentimental, after years of twists and turns, I finally realized you were always the one. Thank goodness, I finally waited for you. 15. In the following days, I saw plenty of activity from Marcus and Clara's side. Their wedding updates kept popping up online, one day about dress fittings, the next about venue confirmation, like a grand reality show. Later, rumors circulated that Clara's family's company was in trouble, and they wanted financial support from Marcus's family's company. Marcus and Clara started bickering again. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Daniel. Free tonight? I'll take you to that new private kitchen restaurant. I raised an eyebrow and replied, sure. The restaurant was tucked away in old alley, its lights a warm yellow. Daniel, knowing the place well, ordered a few dishes I loved, even remembering that I couldn't eat green onions or ginger. During the meal, he didn't mention Marcus once, only discussing new cases at the studio with me. He mentioned how the last collaborator had sung my praises, and brought up how I used to stay at the library until late at night during college, and he'd always claim the seat next to mine. "You're still the same," he said, "carrying everything on your own shoulders." He served me a bowl of soup, his tone as casual as discussing the weather. "Don't try to tough it out alone anymore. I'm always here for you." The rising steam blurred his features, and his quiet companionship, his perfectly timed concern, now slowly clicked into place like puzzle pieces. I didn't speak, just looked up and smiled at him, swallowing the words I know. Some things didn't need to be said outright. Like the warmth of this soup, it perfectly soothed the lingering creases in my heart from the past. This time, I was willing to give myself a chance to start anew. After all, life is long. Who's to say that lost time can't be slowly made up for in the years to come? Thanks for watching today's story. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to share your perspectives, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.